The idea behind this panel today is to hear from students who have been part of the GCC Honor Scholars Program, so that those of you who are here who are students can hear a little bit about their experiences and ask questions of them as participants in the programs. And for those of us who are faculty and staff, and it seems like there's a fair amount of us, to hear a little bit more about what it is, what this is like from the student perspective, so that we can better understand the process ourselves and maybe get more involved and engaged and work with students on our own. So without beating around the bush anymore, I will say that if, in terms of housekeeping stuff, if you can keep yourself muted unless you're speaking, that would be great. And then secondly, if this meeting gets compromised in any way, I'm just going to shut it down and reissue a Zoom link, but that's not going to happen, right? Fingers crossed. All right, so let's get started. And I would like if our student panelists would each just introduce themselves to us. Just tell us who you are, what your interests are, what your experiences, your goals, more or less what makes you awesome, what you want us to know about your awesomeness. And if you could keep it to just about a minute, so really the super duper highlights, that would be great. So maybe I'll call on people in the interest of time. So Justin, can you start us off?
Sure thing. So my name is Justin Lippert. I've been at GCC since 2019. Next semester should be my last semester before I transfer to UMass. Aiming for a psychology degree, hopefully master's level or even PhD level. But the overall career goal I have is to become a therapist. So my honors project is going to be focusing on research methods.
Awesome. And you'll have some time. I'm going to be inviting you to talk even a little more depth about your project. So I'm looking forward to hearing about that. So Mars.
Hi guys, my name is Mari or Mars, and this is my second year at GCC, and I'll be graduating next May. I'm earning I will have earned 4 honors credits at GCC at the end of this semester as an art major. And my interests outside of GCC include coaching. That is one thing that is really passionate about my heart, like inside of my heart. And one of the projects that I did last semester was so I could become a better teacher. Specifically, I got to do a project on Mesoamerica, which helped my teaching skills. And that's what I have to say so far. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Mars. Caitlin.
Hi, I'm Caitlin. I have been at GCC for about 2.5 years. This will be my last semester. I already have my bachelor's. I got it in 2013 in human communication, but I came back to school to do some science prerequisites for Doctor of Physical Therapy programs. So I'll be applying to those this summer. And I've been using the honors program to enrich my learning process and apply some of my classes to human physiology.
Great, thank you. And Julia.
Hi, I'm Julia Starkey. It's my CC, working on my first degree at 30 years old. So I took the scenic route to higher ed. But yeah, I entered the honors program. Well, first of all, I'm an English major, but I take a ton of sociology classes because I just really like them. And I entered the honors program I tried to enter the honors program a year ago. So maybe I'm unique in this group in that way. But then I wound up dropping a project because I lost childcare last spring. So this semester I took another whack at it, and in Linda's class in sociology of gender.
Well, great. We're grateful that you're taking another crack at it, Julia. So I'm curious if you folks could just talk to us a little bit about why you, or what motivated you to engage in an honors project in the first place? Like, why did you want to do something at the honors level? Justin, do you want to start?
Sure. Yeah. My story is a little odd. Originally, I did not intend to come into the honors project. Originally, I wanted to do a walking club at GCC, but I needed approval and I wanted to see even if it was feasible or not. So I brought it up to my professor and he said, this would be a great experimental study for an honors project, because essentially the idea was that I came up with benefits to walking. I came up with what risks could be affiliated with that. And I brought up even a point of like, maybe we can even look at this as kind of like an experimental phase of bringing back socializing on campus. Because we've been off campus for so long, I feel like maybe even myself, I might find myself being kind of socially awkward at times. So, I thought this would be kind of a great kind of idea of trying to learn how to socialize again, being social distance with masks and all that jazz. So additionally, the idea was practical. I'm looking to follow through with the study this summer. I'm aiming for kind of that publication of the study is kind of what drew me ultimately to the honors project.
Great, thank you, Justin. Mars, I know you've had multiple projects, so you may have multiple motivations. So share whatever you think is most relevant for what you've done.
Yeah, so as I said, last semester, my motivation was to create this lesson on Mesoamericas to become a better teacher. So to be able to teach inside of a sequence. Also, I created a 15-minute video lecture. So I needed to have the skills to speak and to educate. Last spring, for my English class, I created a magazine on Black artists, both local and both famous. And that was more so to take a deeper look into Black culture and to celebrate Black and brown bodies. This semester, I'm creating a book, which is actually going to be sent in today to be printed, which is very exciting, about my journey sort of relating to being a primal being. And inside of that, I get to express through the media, had the motivation of being able to express myself and to push myself as a photographer. So I have had both sort of these are ideas that I'm interested in. And also I want to flourish myself as a teacher and as a learner.
That's awesome. Thank you. Caitlin.
Yeah, so I did 2 projects last semester, and then I'm doing 2 more this semester. And originally, I actually, my motivation for doing an honors project was to get the little H next to the class name, trying to make my transcripts look a little bit better and more competitive for DPT programs that I'm applying to. But what I realized in the first semester was I was so much more engaged with the courses that I was doing and able to apply those topics that we were going over in these basic science classes to what I actually want to study and to enrich my learning of the human body and human movement. So I've been, my motivation this term was to try to just soak in my courses and interact with them in a deeper way.
Great, thank you. Julia.
Yeah, so originally my motivation was also to be a competitive applicant to transfer programs. But I was also super interested in the work and doing something a little deeper. I think as entering 100 level classes 2 years ago, as, you know, someone with a lot more life experience than a lot of my peers, I was just looking for something a little deeper. And so, yeah, this semester, Linda, knowing my interests already, you know, told me, you know, this is what the final project for the whole class is going to look like. Would you like to, you know, be a part of doing some extra work and doing it for honors credit? So I took a whack at it, just hoping that I would have time in my schedule.
Great, thank you, Julia. So I'm just going to ask one more question, and after this question, I'm going to take a pause and see if there are questions from folks that are listening to the panel before we get to further questions. So you talk some about projects, those that are doing some now and some that have done in the past. So I'd be curious in hearing from you if you could just kind of describe these projects to us. Like what is it you did? How did you do it? Why did you do it? You know, give us the overview of what your project was all about. And, you know, if you've done multiple, maybe, you know, pick your favorite, pick the best. So Justin, you want to describe your project for us?
Yeah, so I haven't done any previous projects. I'm currently in the midst of this one. But the idea being is I want to explore the impact of socially distanced yet socially connected walking on GCC students' mental health. So I'm thinking like it might be something of like a new study on the impact of the pandemic when it comes to socializing via social distancing or virtually. But really overall, like I'm curious if socializing in person while walking is more or less impactful on a participant's mental health than socializing via Zoom.
So how, can you say a little bit about your methods? Like, what are you
Yeah.
doing, a survey? Or?
Yeah, so I'll be doing I'm looking to measure 4 different variables. Specifically, I'm looking to measure depressive, anxiety, symptoms, sense of social well-being, and sense of social connection. It'll be particularly using questionnaires from the beginning of the like treatment, if you will, midway through about the 4-week mark, and then at the end of the 8-week mark will be the same exact questionnaire. I'm looking to do a repeated measures, so it'll be one group will be doing a 30-minute social distance yet socializing walking around the loop of the GCC parking lot, I guess you can say. And then the second group will be 30 minutes socializing via Zoom. And the idea is like, I'm just kind of wondering like if we have a set schedule of students socializing, whether walking in person or via Zoom, does it impact their mental health in any way? Because there's several studies saying that like walking is super impactful for our physical health, for our mental health. They say that, you know, we're social butterflies or social creatures, socializing super impactful. So where's the, you know, research on this? You know, when they say like, oh, socialize via social media and via Zoom and all these other platforms, is that really impacting and improving our mental health? Or is that just kind of hearsay, if you will? So I'm kind of looking at like this sort of means of like, can we measure this? Can we see if there's actually this impact? And just kind of using a convenience sampling since I'm at GCC doing the honors project to see if like I'll probably do this summer.
Mm-hmm. Great. Thank you, Justin. Mars.
Awesome. Yeah. So I'll talk about my 2 projects that I'm doing this semester. So as I explained earlier, one of my projects is for photography, and it is a photo essay on myself and my expression as a primal being. And it has been, honestly, it's been a process. I've been taking photos for this project since the beginning of the semester, and we've gone in and out. And when it came to building the actual photo essay, I had 3 different ideas like underneath this umbrella. And so my professor, she took the time to say like, hey, I have 3 different ideas here. Let's bring it in. And so I ended up doing a whole nother photo shoot for the book itself that came together well. And it is like a really in-depth process, especially with sequencing, with telling a story with just photos. and being in these moments of playing with, like, I played with charcoal and paint on my face and on my skin, so it's like a really big like exploration, and it is like an emotional investment as well. Like these are very sort of emotionally invoked photos. And then as far as my paper this semester for art history, I'm writing on female representation inside of the art world. So looking at female representation, like physically in art, in photographs, and then also as artists as well, and looking into like the like almost like the psychology of that, and like the reasons why women have been told that they should not be seen inside of artwork, or that they are like mentally not good enough to be an artist. And then like the end of this paper will be sort of like we'll look at all these incredible female-bodied artists, and I would love to like look at some of them who are once again like local, small, maybe artists that go to GCC, and then other like bigger name artists that are females as well.
Yeah, and that's it's interesting to me that Mars, what you're doing, kind of combining, pulling projects from different classes and combining what you're doing in terms of, the proposals that you submitted. I thought that was really interesting. Kind of, it's always cool when our coursework in one area feeds what we're doing in another area. That's great. Caitlin.
Yeah, so last semester I did 2 projects. One, I repeated an experiment that I did in a nutrition class to try to find ways to make it more accurate. And then I also made a booklet that was much too long, but I'm really proud of, for my physics class on biomechanics, and related some of these terms and concepts we were doing in physics to aerial arts, because I also do circus and aerial arts as a hobby. And then this semester, I'm doing another booklet for physics because I really enjoyed that. And I'm doing it on the nervous system, looking at how our body uses electricity to communicate. And then my second project this term is for my biology class, and that I presented to the UMass Undergraduate Research Conference. And it's on the evolution of bipedalism, of walking upright in humans. And I wanted to make sort of like an applied section to this research of looking at the evolution and see how our modern day lifestyles of, sitting constantly in, cars and at our desks and working in school, and see if, there are some musculoskeletal pathologies that occur because we are both bipedal, and now we don't, use the movement that we evolved to use. So that was really exciting for me because I feel like it is diving a little bit more down the road towards physical therapy, and, allowed me to research ways to help mitigate some of these problems too. So that was a really fun project to be able to like record a presentation and submit it to the undergraduate research conference.
That's great, Caitlin. In a couple of minutes, I'm going to be asking you about that, a little more about the experience of presenting your original research, which I think is it's just awesome. Anytime our students have the opportunity to do that, so I want to hear more. I'm sure others too. Julia.
Hi. So this semester in sociology of gender, the whole class was actually part of this oral history research project, interviewing second and third wave feminists with the goal of, finding trends among the interviews. And so Linda invited me to kind of take it a little bit further because she knows that I would like to teach in some capacity one day. And so I became kind of like a research assistant to, my classmates and served as a support to them because research, the qualitative research involving interviews is something I'd done in the past. So it was something I felt confident that I could take on. And then another classmate and I worked together to present the research that the whole class had collected at the Mass URC as well. So we focused on trends in a couple areas of our data, and then also implications for fourth wave feminists in pursuit of social change.
Great, great. And I'm sure we'll hear in a couple of minutes more about your experience in your presentation or making the presentation. It would be very cool. At this point, though, I'm curious if anybody has questions for the panelists. And importantly, if you do, now would be the opportunity to ask them.
I have a question, and I hope it doesn't derail us. But those of you who presented at the conference, what was the timeline for you to identify that you're going to do a project for the conference, get your stuff together, and do the conference? This is something that I run into all the time in the psychology part for our research methods class. Our research methods class is in the spring. So it always, we never send anybody unless we have somebody who can go the following year. So I'm a little curious, how did it go from, I'm doing honors, oh, I'm gonna do the conference, and what was, did you have enough time to put it all together?
Oh, you can go first if you want to.
Okay, sure. So yeah, it was a real push. I think we assumed in, like the creation of the research project that would last the whole semester. We assumed that we would have almost like right up until the conference, but really it was like, surprise, you have to get your presentations uploaded like a full week before. So it was really a push. There was a quick turnaround time between when we had all these interviews done, and then, when my partner and I put together the slides, it was just like in a few days. So I would have loved to have more time, but it was barely doable.
I would agree that the timeline was very difficult. For my project, it's like a pretty classic research writing project. So I made sure to do a lot of my research very early. And the process of making the video it took a lot of effort for me. It took a lot of time, in part because it is so early and because I hadn't really fully formed some of my thoughts from my research yet. And so I was sort of doing that while also creating this outline and this PowerPoint that I'm going to present. So it took me a week of really focusing on that and kind of putting some of my other coursework aside momentarily to get that done. And yeah, the fact that it's due halfway through the term and that the video was due, a week and a half, a week before the actual conference was definitely difficult. But it is making the writing process for this paper a lot easier. So there's that for me. But yeah, it would be a lot nicer to be able to have a little bit more time in the semester, but there's only so much control we have over that.
Are there any other questions?
Thank you.
I have
Peggy?
a question.
Yeah.
Yeah, is it, this is kind of a general question about sort of the honors program and the research presentation. Is it kind of assumed, or is there an assumption that if you are doing an honors project that you will also be presenting at the research conference, or is that not necessarily something that goes hand in hand?
Right.
Because it seems like, did all of you all of the students here also present at the research conference?
No, so if for students to graduate with honors and to complete the Honor Scholars Program, there is a requirement that they present their research at the URC or some other pre-approved venue. But there's no requirement of any student doing an individual project with no intention of presenting. That would be really cool, but that's not a requirement of completing an individual project, but the program does require it.
So the honors program does require a presentation at the end, either at the Research Council or at some other event or approved presentation.
Yeah, yes. Yeah.
Cool. Got it. Thank you. And I'm sorry, folks, I have to leave a little early for another meeting, but I so enjoy hearing about your projects, and I hope I get to work with some of my colleagues in the future more on some of these things. Thank you, students. Well done. Congrats to all of you.
Yeah.
Yay.
Thanks, Peggy.
Bye, folks.
So it seems like it's a good transition. You know, we just had 2 questions about the research project, so maybe we should just stick with that. And if anybody has, if either, so Caitlin and I think Julia, the 2 of you participated in it. If there's anything you want to add to that in terms of, you know, it's a little bit different this year. So it wasn't, you know, you didn't go down there and you weren't interacting with people and you didn't have the experience of setting up. But I wonder if there's anything else you want to share about that experience of presenting, you know, some of the knowledge that you created.
Yeah, I think that I would have liked, I mean, I know that it's not possible in our, pandemic time right now, but I think I would have really liked to have that interpersonal interaction, because there really wasn't a lot of it for this conference. You could sign up for these time periods to generally discuss and have, they called them research and conversation, I think. But other than that, there was really no time to interact with anybody on your own project. And I just think it would have been nice to, be able to set up like a poster and have people come by and ask questions and be able to actually talk to people. But it's not something that's possible in this current time. But it was, I think, a really useful experience to go through creating just the presentation itself and creating a video presentation. Technology is something that is going to move along with us. So I think that that was useful in and of itself.
Thank you, Caitlin.
Yeah, I'll say, as someone who attempted to be part of the Mass URC conference in 2020 when it was canceled, I'm just grateful that it's happening because I want to graduate with honors, and I know that's a requirement of doing so. And so, even if I had, the time to do it, I wouldn't have had the opportunity to present at the conference in 2020. So I was just really grateful that it was happening. But it definitely felt like the social aspect of it was missing. However, as someone who hates public speaking, I was kind of glad that I didn't have to do any of that. And it was good too. I'll echo what Caitlin said, and it was a positive thing to figure out how to make my slides into a video, how to record and do all of that, especially in collaborating with another person and sending files back and forth. I feel very skilled in PowerPoint right now.
Well, maybe, by next spring we can have a well, you probably can't go back to the URC and do the same presentation, but there's nothing stopping us in GCC from having an event where you can share, live and in person and kind of work through that anxiety. Julia, won't that be fun? All right, great. One thing that I'm looking, we don't have other non-honor students at this point, so I guess this is more for, faculty and staff and others to learn about it. The process of working with a faculty mentor and developing a proposal. I'm curious to hear more about that from your perspective. Like, what was that like for you to work through that? and to work, collaboratively and closely with a faculty member on that process. So maybe either Justin or Mars could start us off with that. Yeah, Mars.
Yeah, I really liked that process. At first, when I heard that I would be working with a faculty or staff, I felt like I was like, oh no, like they're gonna try to like tell me what to do, and I wouldn't have true like power inside of this project. But that's like the complete opposite. It's like all of my professors have really worked with me to create like the project that I like dream of creating, and obviously like odds and ends of like, well, it has to be like this to like support like getting like credit for honors, but as far as like allowance to like freely express myself, I really felt supported inside of that.
So the relationship was good, and the process of kind of fitting your vision into the requirements of an honors project, did you find that to be a challenge, or was it pretty smooth?
I think it was smooth, and also I think that other people could think that it wasn't smooth. Like we have like our form that we fill out, and that could be like a little intimidating to me to like plan out XYZ stuff and like dates for when we're gonna have certain parts of our process done. But in general, like that stuff, like I'm very cool with.
Good.
Can I just pop in?
Please do.
Faculty mentor for Mars. The project that Mars did last semester was one of these where we had to do a lot of collaboration at the beginning because Mars really wanted to do something that wasn't actually going to fit with the chronology of the course. And so we had to like work together to see like, okay, this is something that you're really interested in, but how do we make it fit actually what we're learning about in the class? And so that was a bit of a process, but I think it ended up working really well. And you still got to do like really creative stuff, but also something that was ancient instead of modern. And so I think in the beginning, there was a lot of like back and forth, like, okay, so this is the idea. Great. Okay, so that won't quite work. How do we get it to work? And then devising both what you were going to do, as in essentially Mars taught one section of the course, made a PowerPoint, did the video lecture thing, and also devised one like homework assignment to go along with it, which is amazing because I still use that. It's probably the best assignment I think anybody has ever come up with for my class, and I love it so much. And so it's really interesting because your project for that class gave me and all future students something too, which is a really cool thing. And other projects may have a research component or something like that. Your project for me this semester will be essentially a paper, so it will not have quite as much of a life for the rest of the students. But I think you're a really good example of showing how you can do lots of different kinds of honors projects and working in a lot of collaboration in the beginning, and then you just kind of get to like take it and run.
Those are all good points, yes.
Thank you, Carolyn. Justin, do you want to speak to this a little bit?
Yeah, sure. So definitely, I do feel like in this case, it didn't feel like most of the concepts. So typically in classes, sometimes it feels like the concepts we learn are kind of more figurative than they are practical. Like you can see some of them in a practical, like example variable, right? You hear independent variables, you hear dependent variables, but yeah, and you can sometimes see like a practical means of that. But for me, like it was difficult prior to this to really kind of put that into an actual light and be like, okay, like the research study that I'm doing, what are my independent, what are my dependent variables? With working with Josh has been phenomenal. Like I feel like there's a lot more detail and involvement with the developing of a actual research design. I have some odd questions every now and then of trying to really comprehend what I'm trying to study. And he's always happy to kind of be there for me, to be like, hey, like, this is kind of how that works. Or like, and it kind of, he doesn't tell me necessarily the answer, he guides me towards the answer. And I really like that, because it's like, I kind of learned for myself in that case. I pick up on like these subtle cues of like, okay, I'm in the right direction. And that makes me feel good, because it's not just like given the answer and okay, you're good to go type of thing. Like a guide towards that. I really like that. And I've kind of just, the whole process has been understanding the study in more of a practical light than a figurative light, kind of like what my peers are doing right now. They're, working, they're thinking of participants of, not of GCC population, whereas I'm actually like looking to do this summer. Like, I want to actually do this study. I want to aim for that proposal. So trying to get from a figurative light, like I'm very used to in school, and putting it towards an actual practical light, like that's something that I've kind of really enjoyed working with so far in this process.
That's great, Justin. And it's great to hear that Josh just kind of guides you and guides students, because as a colleague, he just tells us what to think and what to do. He doesn't guide us. So good for you. Enjoy that.
I can attest to that.
But he means well. Big heart. That's great. Either Caitlin or Julia, do you feel like you have anything to add to the process of working with a faculty mentor and developing the proposal?
Yeah, I feel like my process is, has been very similar in that I start with just sort of an overarching idea of what I want to get out of the honors project, or maybe a particular topic that I want to study. And I let my professor know that I'm interested in this. And then there's this sort of brainstorming back and forth conversation that happens that helps guide us like into a direction, but it's always what I'm interested in, as a student. I'm not, being told what to do. The project is totally, what I'm interested in, which is something that I really like about it. And some of my projects, I definitely had a stronger vision for what I wanted to do. So I was able just to sort of propose it, get that accepted, and then sort of run with it. And other projects, I've felt a little bit more like I would need really regular check-ins to make sure that I'm on track, and to, sort of continue hashing out like what the project is going to be doing and where it's going. So I think it really depends on the course and, the instructor, and whether or not you like start with a strong idea. It's been a little bit different for me.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I had a great experience working with Linda. And as I said, I tried to do a project in her class, last spring. And so she's just, I don't know, there's something about Linda that she's just like, when she tells me I can do something, I just believe her. And I don't, even if I don't, believe that about myself, that I am someone who does everything, I'm just like, okay, yeah, you're right. So she started gently nudging me, like, I know you're going to take my class this spring, we should do an honors project. And I'm really, really grateful that, she would, pursue that and get me to take another chance on doing it in her class, because if she hadn't, I wouldn't have, thought to take on that responsibility right now with things just the way they are. But yeah, it was a cool experience, especially because she really involved me in like developing, the timeline and the details of like the honors project, or not just my honors project, but the research project that the whole class would be doing. And she knew that I wanted to teach in some capacity or work in higher ed in some capacity in the future. And so she really helped me to figure out like, how could I, invest in myself, in my future career now through this project. So very grateful.
Great. Thank you, Julia. so many cool. I'm scribbling all sorts of notes down, listening to you folks talk about your experience, and I think that's it's wonderful. One of the things that's so heartening to me is you're all saying that there was this collaborative process where you had ideas. You weren't being told what to pursue, and you didn't feel like you got kind of like squeezed into a box, but you were kind of supported in developing your interests, which I think, is the very best of what we can do as teachers, really. See, Montserrat has a question.
Yeah, I know that, Julia, I know that you worked with another student on your project. So you did it as a partner. I don't know about the rest of you. But I'm wondering, did other people have partners, and was it difficult to work together with the constraints of working online, and how did you work out who was going to do what?
Yeah, so my partner wasn't also taking it for honor credit. She just joined me for the presentation for the Mass URC. So she was part of my honors project was the presentation, but part of it was all the other stuff as well. But as far as working together on the conference, it was difficult. I was very lucky to find a partner who was, one of those people that answers emails really quickly. And had it been different, it would have been really, really, really difficult because, working, and just the whole nature of our project was that we depended on the data from all of our classmates, really. Which brought back all that trauma from like grade school group projects, right? Because you are waiting for someone to get their stuff uploaded. So yeah, in the online environment, it was made more difficult, but definitely was an opportunity to sharpen our communication skills and technology skills because we used like so many different modes of communication to get information from one person to another. So.
And I think Julie was the only one that had worked with a partner, right? Yeah. So one thing that I think that I wanted to ask is which is kind of cool here. I'm counting, I think, 4 faculty members here that have worked as faculty mentors for honors projects. So I'm curious about your perspective, not to like flip the script now and evaluate your student, but like in general, like what the experience from your perspective in terms of working with students at this level, what could you add to the conversation about the value of mentoring a student through an honors project?
Carolyn, is your hand up?
Yeah, I can go. I've got a question too, but we can
sure.
save that for the end. But yeah, I can talk about it a little bit. I mean, in the first place, I think I speak for faculty to say that when a student is especially interested in something enough to pursue an extra project in the course, that's only the favorite thing. And so I actually just think that it's been working with Mars both of these last couple of semesters on the honors project has been a really like uplifting way to see how we can sort of steer a student who's excited about something into a product, like an academic product. And so I think that that's something that has been like, it's made me really excited for every semester, and it's made me want to have other students also pursue the honors project, because it just means like I love working with students. And it's been really nice because we've worked on these projects together in the pandemic semesters. So it gives like an excuse actually to have like one-on-one Zoom meetings. And so that really nice of it too.
Mm-hmm. Great, thank you. Okay.
I mean, I've partnered with a couple of, I think 3 students since the beginning of the honors project, or since the beginning of the honors program. And I much like Carolyn was saying, I love it. I think what I like so much about it is that I see it kind of like a fishing pole into the future. It's so interesting to be with students, and kind of they have an interest in the class that they're taking, but through each of the honors projects, they have kind of a hook into what could be for their life beyond GCC, either at their transfer institutions or professionally. And I see the honors stuff, and maybe I've just been lucky with the students who've approached me, but of kind of opening that crack more to see what it like in the future, apply the stuff that we're talking about. I've never had Caitlin in class, but exactly what Caitlin was talking about as she was describing her projects is what inspires me for working with students about that.
Thanks, Josh. Either Trish or Trevor, anything you want to add?
Sure. I just did, I had Caitlin and another student in general chem in the fall, and then I have the same student repeating a project in the second semester of chemistry. And it's a little different, maybe because I made them do experiments. I said, I don't want to read papers. It's going to be harder to do an experiment at home, but they rose to the challenge. And because that's the kind of research that I like, I guess. And it's been great. I mean, Caitlin was phenomenal. And so is Margot, the other woman who's also had a bachelor's degree and now doing science for a different reason. It's always interesting to see what they come up with, as because I don't really go into it with a lot of preconceptions. I'm like, try to think about an experiment, but I don't want to spoon feed you. And so it's really neat to see what people come up with for, this is my experiment, or this is what I'm interested in, and then to try to fit it in with what we're doing that semester is a challenge for me that I really enjoy. And that's been really fun. It's been like, well, how is this going to fit in with, equilibrium and acid-base chemistry or whatever it is we're doing? How am I going to make that fit together? So it's definitely not a one-sided thing as far as the benefits that you get from it. It's great. And the interaction is wonderful too.
Thank you, Trish.
So I'll just add, oh, sorry, Liza had her hand up.
Go ahead, you go first, Trevor.
Oh, okay. So I've worked with a number of honor students at this point. The thing I appreciate about it, there are many things I appreciate about working with honor students. One is just their enthusiasm for their own particular visions, the things that they want to pursue, the things that they want to learn, that go beyond what I might have done in the classroom or would have thought to do in the classroom. So I'm very happy to help students do what they want to do. Like that's a big part of it. But also it's very gratifying to be working with students who are strong academically and who can handle something more, and who can go further. As an open access institution at GCC, we have all kinds of people that walk through our doors, and a lot of them, they have maybe some educational deficiencies here or there because they're coming back to school later on in life and they haven't done math in 10 years or something. So we devote a lot of resources to helping those students, and we should, because that's what we're here for. Ultimately, we're here to like offer higher education to the people. That's what we do. And that's like one of the greatest things in the universe, really. We get people educated who might otherwise not ever have been able to go through the higher educational system as it existed like 70 years ago. So all that's great, but it's also great to work with the students who are more academically prepared or more academically capable, and who can take things to another level and sort of open up my own horizons as a professor. I've had students do research projects where they go and they're looking at art, and they're reading like literary criticism that I haven't become familiar with. And so they get to expand my horizons as well. And that's fantastic.
That's great, Trevor. Thank you. Well said about our mission and the unique opportunity to work with students that are have the skills and the aptitude and desire to dig even deeper. So I'm cognizant of time. Liza, did you have a quick question? Because I want to make sure that the each of the panelists has just a minute at the end to have the last word. No offense, Liza.
No, I'd rather hear from them too. That sounds good.
Okay. So what I'm would love to hear from the panelists then is if you could just tell us like what your advice would be to a student who is interested in doing an honors project or being part of the honors scholars program at GCC. What would you tell them? Justin, do you want to start?
Yeah, I can make it nice and short. Express your ideas. If I didn't approach Josh about the walking club, then I would have never found myself at this board with this research study right now.
Express your ideas. That's great. Thank you, Justin. Mars?
Yeah, I think like similarly, I'd say like do it. And I would also say like a little advice for faculty too is like tell students about the honors program, because I didn't find it until I was like on GCC's website for some reason. I saw like I could get honors credits and like graduate with honors to do a project that I love. Like what? So I think just like passing that word and saying like obviously like it's not easy, but it is easier because it's like we get to do work that we like to do, which makes it easier than regular work.
That's great, Mars, and that's feedback we need to hear. And I'm glad that Chet's here too, so that we're all kind of hearing that we need to do a better job. I'm not saying it's his responsibility, but you know, the more people that are aware that we need to do a better job getting the word out about this awesome opportunity, the better. So thank you.
Can I say one thing before we go? Thank you so much, Brian, for having me and for all of you. I know a few of you. I was messaging Mars on the side. We've been doing kind of a project, this underground project that's going to be coming out in the fall. So thank you so much. And it was really nice to hear about your work. And this is a cool group of people because the faculty on the other side, the staff on the other side of the conversation are amazing. I logged in here. It's like, you have like the most creative group of people here. And it's really nice to hear about the projects and the shared work and a lot of the fun. And the caveat is I love this job, but I really miss teaching a lot of the time. So it gives me a way back in to hear about what's going on in the classroom, because I started teaching when I was 25. It was the only real job I ever had. It's the only thing I really knew. And this is the first year since I was 25 that I haven't been in a classroom. So it's I do love the job, but it's great to hear about all the work you guys are doing with students and students you're doing with faculty staff. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you, Chet. Thanks for stopping by. So Caitlin, what would your advice be to students who are interested in honors?
I would definitely agree with what Mars said. Do it. I think that it might sound sort of intimidating at first to do an honors project, but it turns out it is really easy to accomplish because it's something that, you know, I'm personally interested in all of my projects. So it's not hard for me to want to devote time and energy to it because I find it interesting and fascinating, and it's probably one of the better decisions I've done with my education this year is to do these honors projects. I feel like I've gotten such a deeper, more enriching experience. I think that most students probably feel the same way about their honors projects. So I would just say, go for it, do it, shoot your instructor a message and see where it goes.
good advice, Caitlin. Thanks. Julia.
Yeah, so I would say to prospective students that it's really cool to be curious. And I see a lot of hesitation in younger students, especially that they are curious, but they tone it down so it's not too, come on too strong or too, too eager. I don't know. But you really have to advocate for yourself if you want the full value of your education. So that would be my advice to students, but I also echo what Mars is saying, and professors who maybe have had the same students in a couple different classes, you know who your students are who are really passionate and really driven or goal oriented, and so chase them down. Don't be afraid to chase them down, because I think students have that hesitancy to go after something they want or might be interested in, but it could, if Linda hadn't chased me down to do another project, I wouldn't have, and I'm really grateful that she did. So yeah.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Sometimes it is as simple as being asked, right? And encouraged. So, we're up against, it's 2:00 now. And again, thank you so much, Justin, Mars, Caitlin, and Julia, for making the time. You've been so generous with your time, and I really do appreciate it. You did a wonderful job. You're wonderful spokespeople for the honors program and the projects that you've done. So thank you so much